Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terraplex Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from Terraplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terraplex Ag. Visit TerraplexAg.com.
Welcome to Williams and Blum Wednesday here on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network. My name is Chris Williams, joined as always by my partner in crime, Brent Blum. We are presented by Mechdyne, the Mechdyne Corporation. Check them out at Mechdyne.com, Mechdyne. That's Mechdyne, Mechdyne. We are in the Wild Rose Casino Studios here in Ankeny. Hi, Brent. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. That's fantastic.
Excited about life.
Really?
Yeah.
Out there raising a lot of money, eh?
Well, no, I do want to share this with you. I know you're disappointed about this. So I've been trying to be a little bit more. We're both approaching 40.
Yeah, we're getting old.
We're getting old when people can relate to this. And of all things, even my metabolism has slowed down. So I'm trying to work out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Lately.
Yeah.
So I've been doing the Peloton.
Okay.
But then
Kendall's gone.
My favorite Peloton instructor up and leaves,
Kendall's
and
gone.
I had to tell somebody.
Yeah.
And if you relate, I just had to share it with somebody, and I don't know what to do.
Very upset about this news.
So Kendall's
gone. You know what you should do? Forget about her and go to Game Day Men's Health.
Well, maybe I should do that.
So I'm doing the one in Ankeny. Telling you.
That's a promo.
How's that? They also got one in West Des Moines. Eastern Iowa Clones over in North Liberty. They got one. And you go in there and you can get a free consultation. So they're going to take your blood and they're going to see what your T level is, baby. But they got a lot of other stuff too. It's not just the testosterone.
I'm telling you, it's going to catch up with all y'all.
Oh, they got all kinds of stuff going on at Game Day.
You get near that 4-0 and all of a sudden you're like,
I'm feeling good right now.
I can't eat ice
Daddy's
cream.
Feeling good
I can't eat ice cream for every meal.
No.
I am at the point where I'm jealous of my 6-year-old because he wants to eat ice cream with everything. I'm like, son, you're going to be 800 pounds, but it doesn't seem to impact him yet.
No, he's skinny as a rail.
Yeah.
Nice young man.
But for me, it's starting to add up.
Today, we are just going to, as you heard on the earlier pod this week, we're just looking back at one of our favorite games. One of my favorite days in Hilton Coliseum. We look back at it today. It was Sunday, November the 17th from 2013. Iowa State defeats number 7 Michigan in Hilton Coliseum, 77-70. There was so much around this game.
Ugh.
Johnny Orr comes back to Hilton Coliseum. Dick Vitale is on the call. His first return to Hilton in 20-some years.
He'd never been.
No, he had never been.
He had never been.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
And then Iowa State with a huge win over a top 10 team. Now, let me back it up real quick. So those of you, if you're like me, these Hoiberg teams
they all blend together.
They do in a weird way. And you have to be like, well, that was the Kane year, or that was this was the Kane year.
This was the Kane year.
So this was the year that Iowa State loses in the Sweet 16 in New York City to UConn. This was the year the notorious Niang broken foot game.
Yes.
That happened on March the 21st of 2014. Iowa State beats North Carolina Central in that one. He breaks his foot. He has 24 points in that game. But we are looking at the Michigan game. And it's a good thing they did this because Johnny Orr passes away not long.
It was 5 weeks after that.
Nope. So they do this, and we'll talk about that, the actual basketball game as well. I felt like was a big deal as Naz Mitru-Long leads the Cyclones with 16 points that day, but it was off the bench. A young man named Melvin Ejim comes back from injury. We thought he would be out. 22 points in his return, 9 points for Melvin Ejim in that game. But it all kind of gets lost with the pregame atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, the game itself was really, really high end, but the lasting memories will be of the pregame spectacle, because it was so a lot of things played into this. This is the crazy part, because how far Iowa State basketball has come since this standpoint is part of the conversation.
Look how long their shorts are.
But how about there's our guy Tom Eads. Hopefully he's doing okay.
Tom Eads was in that game?
Yeah, he was the official right there. Tom Eads. Battling some health stuff right now, I believe. But anyway, Iowa State at this point, so this is November of 2013. Iowa State was not ranked yet, but the thought was Iowa State was 2-0. You beat a top 10 Michigan team. You are going to be ranked. C-Dub. It would have been the first time Iowa State is ranked in regular season play since 2005. Iowa State wasn't ranked for 8.5 years. That's incredible.
Yeah, that is
so long.
Just thinking about it now, right?
Right.
It's insane.
Think about 8.5 years ago. How much has Iowa State been in the top 25 in the last 8.5 years? And that didn't include the prom stuff. So that was on Iowa State was supposed to be really good. But even Fred's teams, they were fun. They'd score some points, but it was never, hey, these guys are going to threaten for anything worthwhile. Well, then DeAndre Kane comes in, and Niang's a year older, and you sign this for freshman recruiting class that we thought to be pretty good. Matt Thomas was supposed to be the guy, and he started right away as a freshman. And then this other unheralded guy, not as well known as Monte Morris, was going to redshirt. But then in this game in particular, realized, wait a second, you can't keep this guy off the floor. Iowa State was not deep at all. Iowa State played 7 guys during this game and included Ejim, who was hurt. And there was thought he wouldn't even play. And Michigan top 10. But what really the focus on this game was twofold. One, obviously, Orr, Vitale, you're going to be in the top 25, meaningful game. There had never been a game against a ranked opponent in November at Hilton Coliseum up to this point. But then secondly, the Iowa State football program was horrible that year. And so everybody was looking forward to basketball. This same year was the year Iowa State lost to Baylor 71-7.
Oh, was it really?
This was
good pull. Good pull.
The day before, Iowa State had gone to Norman, and Oklahoma literally took its foot off the gas and won 48-10. Iowa State had an awful football year.
Those were some fun post-game shows.
But all of the eyes were on basketball. It's like for your mental well-being, you needed Iowa State basketball to do well. And this was a game, it's like, are we good or not? You have a top 10 Michigan team coming in. They had just been in the championship game the year prior. They had all these guys coming back. Mitch McGarry and Nick Stauskas Glenn Robinson were the 3 big ones. But then you had even a guy who's still in the NBA now, and Karis LeVert started that game for them. And then Derek Walton.
They had the whole recruiting thing with him and Monte.
Yeah,
I remember
Monte.
that was a story.
So they picked Walton over Morris.
Yeah.
And Morris won Mr. Basketball in Michigan, but Walton was the one who was getting more of the headlines. And
I forgot Stauskas was on that team.
And Stauskas was the best player.
I remember game. Walton and Robinson and LeVert, but I didn't remember Stauskas.
And then Iowa State is like, you knew they were going to be pretty good, but you weren't sure how good. And then DeAndre Kane, that was really the first time I said, okay, this guy belongs at this level. He went 13-6-5, and there were times where he just bullied people. Niang didn't play great, but had some clutch baskets late in that game. By the way, Niang's birthday this week. Happy birthday, George.
Happy birthday,
number
George.
31 for the GOAT. And it was just one of those games where it went back and forth. It was close throughout. And Naz Long hit a couple monster shots when Iowa State was trailing in the second half. And it was one of those things where it's like Iowa State was not going to lose that game with all of those events surrounding it. And the best part, if Aiden would pull up that picture of Johnny Oregon, what you didn't know at that time, and I didn't know either, was Johnny was not in good health. And so this kind of got arranged really quickly to get him there for one last swan song in front of the crowd.
Look at Fred's face.
But then he walked out, and it was like he was reinvigorated again. And you would never have known that he was not in good health at this point. And again, he passed away a month later. I mean, and Fred was like a happy, it was like the passion of it really was a passion of the torch that
Didn't
day.
Johnny Orr pass away the day you got engaged?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was New Year's Eve that same year in 2013.
They played Northern Illinois.
But the great part is Dick Vitale.
I told you I remember everything based on
play Northern Illinois
Iowa State.
Yeah.
I can tell you exactly what I did.
Yeah.
We ate at Americana.
We did.
Pretty sure I got the steak.
I want to be safe because I was going to propose, so you don't want to get like.
You didn't want to get something to give you the runs.
Correct.
That'd be a bad situation.
Get on a knee and everything.
Get on your knee and
be a bad deal. Right. Where was
it happens.
I was going to say something somewhat. No, so sorry, Vitale was there, and the neat part with Vitale is 18 years prior, and I don't know if Aiden, if you can pull this
clip up, yeah.
Iowa State was on. Iowa State got selected for the NCAA tournament, and Johnny Orr was on the selection show, and Vitale was the co-host, and I don't remember the exact reason of how it came up, but this is on television, and classic Johnny Orr tells Dick Vitale, they were talking about the last time they played Detroit back in the day, and Johnny says, "Yeah, we kicked your ass too," and he said on national television. So
did those guys?
And there was always this thought that Vitale and Orr didn't get along because of that. I don't know, but he never showed up at Ames. Here we go. This is awesome.
Congratulations, Johnny. Good luck. I hope you win it all.
Well, thank you, Lefty. And Valvano?
Yeah.
You and Dick.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something. Someday I'm going to get a job like that. But all you got to do is, you don't have to coach them anymore, You just say something. You never been to practice, nothing. You didn't say something. That's a hell of a thing.
Hey, John, I haven't lost a game in 2 years.
I'm undefeated for 13 years, John. The last loss I had was against you in the regionals, baby. With
I know,
the Michigan team.
And we kicked your ass.
All right, on that note, we will move along here.
See, like,
it's just the best.
Like Iowa State fans, like always, like used to say, like, "Oh, they that like seemed really fun to me."
We need to talk to an old timer. I don't think it was all just fun.
Well, Vitale,
I think Vitale took it personally.
Really?
At the time, I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Well, because Vitale was in Detroit, Johnny was the coach at Michigan. I'm sure there was some.
We kicked your ass.
We kicked your ass.
We kicked your ass. We could hit up our buddy Ray Cole, maybe get Vitale to talk about that.
I bet Ray Cole's a good source. And I actually should talk to Heft as well. He would remember that.
But to me, I've seen that clip 150 times.
It seemed pretty lighthearted. Yeah, maybe there wasn't as much.
But it was an infamous clip for an Iowa State fan to go back and watch that. So then you've got Vitale in the building
for the first time.
For the first time ever, in the cathedral.
He is, how do I say, Vitale at this point is still college basketball. Now you could argue he still is. He hasn't done as many games recently because he's
still very much a face of college basketball.
But back then he was the deal. Like if Vitale's coming,
he was John Madden.
It was a huge spectacle. And I remember he was meeting with the media, and he made himself a part of the game. He would stand up and clap like during the game, and it's like, analysts don't do that anymore, but that was the throwback to an older time. And I think between him and Orr, and you had the bridge of Fred Hoiberg made it really, really special. And I still get chills thinking about it. The interesting part here, there was one recruit who I had an extra edge to that game who was on campus that day to see that. And it was a big deal. Remember the name Rashad Vaughn?
He was on campus.
It was his official visit for that game.
I didn't know that.
Yep. And so,
wow, great pull.
That had some extra sizzle because this guy, and I actually thought they could get that guy.
I don't think I've ever been more annoyed with the recruitment in my life than trying to cover Rashad Vaughn. Be like, I'm trimming my list to 12.
So shady, the whole thing, and he ended up being nothing in the NBA.
He was never going to Iowa State.
He was not, but at the time we thought he was.
Same with the Diallo deal. He was never going. That was part of that Adidas thing.
Yeah,
with Kansas. That's why Diallo ended up there. He was never going to a Nike school.
So there was just so much around there. And again, I keep coming back. The football team was so bad that year that everybody was like, we need basketball to be good. And Iowa State wins. gets ranked for the first time and in the regular season in 8 years that week. I don't think they left the top 25 seed up for 4 years.
Wow.
After that game. And so that was the start of, there's some fun Fred teams to, oh my gosh, Iowa State is legit. That year is the same year you win the Big 12 tournament, obviously the broken foot. But I think that game itself, when you beat a top 10 Michigan team who had just been in the national championship, it was similar to that, like we talked about football earlier in the week. That was Iowa State has arrived type moment before, the game against Connecticut in the tournament 2 years prior, going toe-to-toe with Kentucky, you were kind of there. But this was oh my gosh, not only did Iowa State just beat a top 10 team, but their guys were just as good as Michigan's guys.
Well, and I remember, too, that was kind of our first look at Monte Morris.
It was
that game, too. I mean, he had played.
But you couldn't keep him off the floor.
That was – because then that led up to one of our favorite games was the BYU game, right? We've talked a lot about that game in Provo. In fact, I almost thought to highlight that one today, but I'm like, we kind of did that this year when they went back to Provo for the first time. But again, like leading up to, I don't think that they had fully decided at that point if Monte was going to redshirt or not.
Definitely. I mean, he had
They were waiting on Boo Boo Paulo's deal.
Yep.
And how that was all going to play out. But he technically could have redshirt. He played 19 minutes in that game.
Yeah, he played a lot. And, that year Iowa State started, was it 14-0, 13-0? They won the Hawaii tournament. And then it got really rocky in the Big 12. It did. It wasn't all
no.
It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for Fred.
They lost 4 of 5 in the month of January.
And everyone was like, oh my gosh, Fred's not playing any defense. And
well, they only played 7 guys, too.
That's right. They had no depth.
No depth at all on that team.
And that ultimately would bit him because George gets hurt and you had to play Daniel Edozie.
What I remember about that Big 12 stretch, their first loss was that Oklahoma game. Kane rolled his ankle at the end of it.
Yes.
And they made it a big deal. Like they didn't know, they were trying to game Kansas because Kansas was coming. So
on a big Monday.
On a big Monday. They play Saturday at Oklahoma. They come back on Monday. Kansas is ranked in the top 15 or top 10, something like that. And we didn't know if Kane was going to be able to play. And they were trying to do the gamesmanship thing.
And Iowa State was the favorite in that game. Iowa State was the top 10 team. Kansas was not, which is interesting looking back. And of course,
and that's when everybody started to panic a little bit.
Yeah, because 2 freshmen for them turned out to be decent players, Joel Embiid and Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins was the more highly thought of guy by far. And now Embiid's obviously turned himself
Wasn't
into a
Wiggins, wouldn't you say in the past 15 years, he's probably been one of the most highly touted freshmen in the country?
No question. And he had a really good year. He did. It's just, he never lived up to the LeBron type comparisons where Embiid was not as well known and he's had a much greater NBA career. But yeah, that game against Kansas that year, Iowa State could not throw it in the ocean.
Still think one of my favorite games of the Hoiberg era, just an individual game, was that Big 12 tournament win against Kansas.
It was one of my favorites. Yep, totally.
That would have been March 14th. So I don't believe Embiid played in that game.
He did not.
He was hurt. But Iowa State was down at halftime considerably, I want to say. It was like, I don't know what the score was, but they were down, and it looked pretty bad. And I thought the next 20, Hoiberg and his staff put together one of the better coaching jobs we've seen in 20 years.
The offensive performance that game is still the best I've ever seen because Bill Self seems could always
scored 94
and they scored
points.
94, and it was like layup after layup after layup. That was the Niang bloody face game that led to the Band-Aid.
Everybody was Band-Aiding.
That I can't tell you guys how special that week in Kansas City was. Iowa State hadn't done it in so long. And again, football was so bad at the time that you just...
Perry Ellis
was in his 9th year. But you needed... Iowa State basketball this year is going to be similar. You're going to get a lot of attention. The one difference is you're also going to be good in football as well.
Yeah.
At the time, though, basketball was literally your life raft. Like your fandom depended on Iowa State men's basketball being good because you had not much else. And then Fred had reached cult hero status by this point. and you thought the sky was the limit, and he had a amazing time. But that year in particular, starting with that Michigan game all the way through to the Sweet 16, still one of my favorite years because Iowa State hadn't done it yet. And they did it that year, made a Sweet 16, and all the that was the whole Fred Hoiberg doing the dance in the locker room. Remember Flappy Bird was a big deal. Remember the Flappy Bird game on the phone?
Absolutely.
All sorts of stuff that year.
Shout out to my friends at the Iowa Clinic, the Iowa Clinic Men's Center, iowaclinic.com, where I do all my family's health care.
So do I.
Good. And they've been supporting Cyclone Fanatics since day one, literal day one. You want to give back to the people who get back to us. Iowa Clinic, look at all their great doctors, services, and locations all over the great state of Iowa. I also want to give a shout out to Gravitate Co-working. Check them out at gravitatecoworking.com today for all of your co-working needs. It continues to grow. These Gravitate Co-workings all over our state, specifically in the Des Moines Metro. If you need conference rooms for summer meetings, go to gravitatecoworking.com and see what they have available for you.
The other interesting part for that game,
yes,
is both of those head coaches ultimately coached in the NBA, and both did not last. People forget Beeline coached the Cavs for like a half season, and it was so bad.
I did forget about that.
He was so bad that they fired him.
So I totally forgot about that. Good call. I had already gone up to this Kansas game for a minute. I was looking at this box score. Tell me if was Matt Thomas hurt?
No.
He played 1 minute in that game.
In the Kansas Big 12 tournament game?
Yeah.
He had been beaten out. I mean, that at that point,
Monte had earned his way into the starting lineup.
I mean, that was it got to a point with Matt that towards the end of that year, like, what's wrong with Matt Thomas?
So to show you the depth problems we were talking about, Iowa State's starting five in that game, it goes DeAndre Kane, Monte Morris, Melvin Edgem, George Niang, Dustin Hogue. This is the amount of minutes all five of those guys played. 35, 35, 37, 33, 35. They basically played five guys. Daniel Odozie had 8 minutes and Naz Mitrou-Long had 16.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Monte played 30 minutes in that game. Jeez.
Monte played 35. Isn't that wild?
It is. That is nuts. And it's also why, man, I thought
that Matt Thomas's? It was his freshman year.
It was his freshman year.
Yeah, and he struggled at the beginning.
He did.
And everybody was all over his ass, and that's what led Fred Hoiberg to do the great
social media's the end of it.
Yeah, the social media is going to be Armageddon.
And
wasn't wrong.
He wasn't wrong. That year was just crazy. But yeah, Thomas got a lot of heat. Even his next year too. He was pretty average, and then his last 2 years were awesome though.
Yeah, he was one of the great shooters in the history of the school.
I do think. I know Niang gets attention as he should. And obviously Tyrese Halliburton is become an uber mega star. Monte Morris's Iowa State career, I think can stack up with any of them. I do. From a wins perspective, from a production standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. I know he's been good in the NBA. He is kind of what we thought he was going to be in the NBA. He's now pushing 10 years, very, very veteran. But put up his numbers as a point guard against the rest of Iowa State, and it is not close. He's the best.
Do you think?
But he wasn't flashy.
I wonder, too, looking back, I remember making such a big deal out of it at the time because that's what they were telling me. I would love to ask Monte now, like with hindsight, like how much the Kane thing helped him.
Yeah, and that was that ongoing thing is he had to play against a grown man day in and day out.
Because he, again, like I know this firsthand, like the plan was that he was going to redshirt. Because he was so small.
He was tiny.
When he got it to Iowa State, but then Boo Boo Powell's Liga situation didn't allow it. And he ends up being one of the most efficient players on the entire team at the end of the year.
He was. You couldn't keep him off the floor.
And it also, like, going back, when you look at how limited this team was from a depth perspective, the fact that this team made the Sweet 16 and beat North Carolina without Niang is crazy.
And that was a good team. It's good.
Yeah, Marcus Page was the guy there.
Page, and they had the big guy McAdoo.
That probably could be a look back game at some point.
I just Monte. I mean, we talk about the retired jersey situation, and I think Niang would have to be first, if not Pfizer and Tinsley. But we're gonna remove that part for now. But I think Monte's right there.
The North Carolina game, I'm obsessed with the depth now. So Adozie starts that game. We all remember that. He's basically there to get a couple fouls.
And he did that. He did that really well.
Naz comes off the bench and plays 26 minutes, 4 of 8 from 3.
He hit an absolute bomb that kept Iowa State in that game.
Sharon Dorsey Walker played a minute. Percy Gibson played 2 minutes. This whole the Cornell Michigan connection there. Matt played 16, but then it was Kane, Morris, Edgem, Hogue, 39, 32, 33, 35 minutes.
My goodness.
But they really, it is wild. Like, you think back to those Fred, he really played 7 guys.
He didn't.
I mean, that was it.
That was it. That was
his rotation.
He was not comfortable going beyond that. And I think Fred's attitude was, I'm going to put the guys that can put the ball in the basket. I don't care if they guard.
Yeah.
We will outscore you.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that led to the downfall in the tournament most years. But when Iowa State was on that year, I don't remember a better offensive team that I've seen at Iowa State. That Big 12 tournament run, they were impossible to guard. You have a Kansas team that was as good defensively, and Iowa State I think shot 65%. Like, it was ridiculous, and they just carved them up. George Niang is the perfect Hoiberg player for that era, just because you could, when Iowa State was on, when George was on, he would frustrate you, but you could not stop him. You could score on the other end sometimes, but Iowa State would always outscore you.
Good stuff. This was a lot of fun. We appreciate you guys. We had to pre-record this one today. We know there's no news coming from this, but take a trip down memory lane. We like doing this. If you have games you would like Blum and I to cover, we're going to do this again for the next couple of weeks until football really starts to pick it up. If you have games you want us to look back at, let us know.
10 years ago already. Unbelievable. Getting old.
He is Brent Blum. Thanks to Aiden Wyatt for producing. Remember, you can watch these shows on YouTube now. We would appreciate it if you would give us great reviews and subscribe and all of that good stuff. We are presented by Mechdyne, signing off from the Wild Rose Casino Studios. Have a great rest of your work week, Cyclone Nation.